newly retired Contra Costa County cold case investigator who worked on the Golden State Killer case for the last 24 years.
The unraveling of the Donna Jo Richmond mystery. Imagine being convicted of a murder.
It's absolutely huge. After nearly a quarter of a century trying to find this guy, to actually...
You didn't commit, spending years behind bars for a crime that never happened.
And using DNA technology that could produce leads that allows gumshoe investigation to follow up on.
All because of a piece of evidence that seemed indisputable. That's exactly what happened with Rick Smith, whose 1975 conviction for the brutal murder of 14-year-old Donna Jo Richmond shattered his life. And now, decades later, new investigations suggest he was framed, possibly by someone even more sinister, the notorious Golden State Killer, Joseph James DeAngelo. This is the story of how a teenager died, an innocent man paid the price, and a serial predator may have pulled the strings. A tragic discovery on October 24, 1975. The small California town of Exeter was shocked by the discovery of Donna Jo Richmond's body. The 14-year-old had been missing, and when she was found, she had been strangled to death. The town reeled with sorrow and fear. A teenager, full of promise and life, was gone, and the killer was still out there. Police scrambled for suspects. Rumors spread. Families worried. In the end, a local youth named Rick Smith, a quiet, somewhat troubled teenager, became the focus. Perhaps due to a tip, or hearsay, or weak circumstantial threads, investigators zeroed in on him. The small-town machinery moved quickly. An arrest, a confession later recanted, a trial, and then conviction. Rick was sentenced to life in prison. Justice, the town believed, had been served. But that justice, it turns out, may have been built on sand. Rick Smith's conviction hinged on two central claims: that he had strangled Donna and that he had confessed. But over time, serious doubts emerged. People began to question whether Rick was coerced, vulnerable, or mentally unstable, whether he might have falsely confessed just to end the pressure. The type of interrogation used on him, when a teenager is held, questioned repeatedly, told he'll look guilty if he doesn't confess, is now known to lead often to false admissions. Rick always maintained his innocence, but for more than 3 decades, he stayed behind bars. A mother grieved, a town slept uneasy, and a killer walked free. Meanwhile, across the state, another crime wave was unfolding. Between 1974 and 1986, an unknown man committed over 120 home invasions, at least 50 rapes, and 13 confirmed murders, all across California. He was called various names: the Visalia Ransacker, the East Area Rapist, the original Night Stalker. But it wasn't until writer Michelle McNamara connected the dots that he was dubbed the Golden State Killer. A killer that had terrorized an entire generation. Thanks to relentless investigation, advances in DNA, and public fascination, authorities finally arrested Joseph James DeAngelo in 2018. He confessed to all 13 murders and more than 50 rapes. Though due to the statute of limitations, he could only be charged with murder and kidnapping. He pleaded guilty in 2020 and was sentenced to life in prison without parole. This long-awaited capture provided stunning clarity, but it also reignited interest in old, unsolved cases like Donna Jo Richmond's. The investigative spark. In 2019, ABC 10 San Diego released one of its most gripping documentaries, Framed by the Golden State Killer. Investigative journalist Lilia Luciano revisited the Richmond case, interviewing prosecutors, detectives, and witnesses. One striking discovery: some of the evidence that led directly to Rick Smith's conviction may have been intentionally planted, possibly by the killer himself. Yes, a killer using manipulation to frame an innocent man and keep the spotlight off his own crimes. Lilia's investigation revealed that a strand of hair, key evidence claimed to be from Rick, was found at the crime scene. But at trial, expert reports showed its color and structure didn't match. Classic hair analysis of the time wasn't exact, and defense attorneys didn't have the advantage of DNA testing. Even more damning, the path of the Visalia Ransacker overlapped Exeter both in space and time. He was striking in the same region that fall. He had escalated from peeking through windows and stealing underwear to rape and murder. He might have murdered Donna, framed Rick with forensic trickery, and moved on. Patterns of the ransacker. Let's retrace DeAngelo's early crimes. as the Visalia ransacker. He prowled through homes at night in 1974, sometimes taking underwear photos or toys. By 1975, his crimes escalated. He attacked and murdered people in their homes. He had a pattern of dropping evidence, returning to crime scenes to observe, and, disturbingly, moving forensic material between them, perhaps intentionally contaminating scenes to confuse profiles. In one Exeter case, a pair of broken eyeglasses appeared, a clue, but they didn't belong to Rick. Later, investigators theorized they might belong to someone else entirely, and perhaps, just maybe, right after killing Donna, DeAngelo planted Rick's hair to deliberately mislead. Investigators interviewed neighbors who recalled someone resembling the ransacker in the area, describing a man in disguise, prowling at night, avoiding suspicion. Rick's trial in 1976 was swift. He was a frightened teenager, intimidated, isolated, unsure. He'd reportedly confessed, but under heavy pressure. Confession aside, he had no alibi. There was no DNA testing. The jury heard the hair evidence and Rick's admission, and promptly found him guilty. But time has shown just how unreliable confessions can be, especially from youth. Studies throughout the last 20 years demonstrate a startling fact: innocent teenagers can and do admit to crimes they never committed under duress. Rick was paroled in the 1990s after serving more than 17 years, but even beyond the gates, stigma followed. A murderer on paper, a convicted rapist, a stigma hard to escape. New evidence, new hope. Fast forward to the fall of 2019, when the documentary aired. Public opinion stirred. Investigative sources re-examined hair and enlisted more forensic experts. New witnesses came forward. Some law enforcement officials even admitted that the Richmond case should be reopened. One former investigator said, "At the time, we thought we caught him. Now, with DNA, I'm not so sure." Another detective mused aloud that if DeAngelo hadn't stopped in 1975 and vanished for years after returning to a police career, maybe he would have moved on, having killed before, and then let Rick pay. In the aftermath, calls rose for Rick's record to be cleared, for the case to be reopened, for DeAngelo's role in Exeter to be conclusively ruled in or out. Critics argue, if DeAngelo framed Rick, his reach and malevolence were deeper than we ever imagined. It turned a decades-old tragedy into something even more chilling: systematic manipulation and multiple victims. The California Attorney General's office confirmed that the Richmond case is under review. New forensic testing, modern DNA, GLI procedures could potentially exclude Rick or point to DeAngelo definitively. But behind every twist is a human life. Rick, now in his 60s, lives with the scars of imprisonment and public shame. His mother, aunt, and supporters, some of whom testified on his behalf, carry the burden of watching justice collapse. Donna's family still mourns her loss. They await closure, not just in terms of the killer, but truth about what happened. Whether they ultimately know who killed Donna or not, one thing is clear: the family deserves final answers. Strong hearts around them now fight for that clarity. Innocent men deserve exoneration. Families deserve closure. Towns deserve trust. Beyond this case, if the Golden State Killer framed one man, how many others did he mislead? Early crimes in Visalia, Sacramento, and elsewhere often lacked DNA materials. Investigators might have arrested innocent suspects. Some cases remain unsolved. Some convictions may be unsound. Now, thanks to DNA genetic genealogy, these files can be re-examined. New testing, new narrative arcs, new paths of justice might emerge. But old records are fragile. Tapes degrade. Witnesses die. Memories fade. The clock is ticking, and the test results matter. The Golden State Killer case revived hope for hundreds of cold cases. If DeAngelo struck again in Exeter, knowing it, planted hair, forced a false confession, then the law has a second chance. Rick Smith isn't asking to walk free. He's asking to be freed of an injustice. He wants his name cleared. He wants people to know an official system was wrong. Donna Jo's family wants to know who really killed their girl. Rick's family wants restitution. The town wants healing. This story isn't about who, it's about what justice means. So, was Rick Smith framed by the Golden State Killer? We don't yet know for sure. But for the first time since 1975, we're asking. We're using DNA. We're demanding transparency. We're demanding answers. Because justice isn't just about punishment. It's about the truth. And when truth is denied, everyone pays. This fall, keep an eye on Exeter, on Rick, on Donna. But beyond that, remember that small communities can make big mistakes. That power can corrupt, that cold cases deserve cold light. And learn one key lesson: never assume the darkness is gone. Sometimes the most chilling monsters operate in the margins. Sometimes they pull puppet strings and leave the innocent hanging.